My world is made of lines, longitude, latitude, elevation contours. As a digital cartographer, I take the messy, chaotic reality of the world and I translate it into pure, clean, logical data. I create maps that are more real than the places they represent. I find errors. I correct the historical record. I bring order to the wilderness. I work from a sterile, climate-controlled office, 100 miles from the nearest forest or river. I deal in satellite images and LiDAR scans, not in legends or ghost stories. I believed that every square inch of the earth could be measured, quantified, and understood. I believed there were no more forgotten places. But a map is not the territory, and some territories refuse to be forgotten. The map arrived in a dusty, unlabeled tube from a university archive. It was a beautiful, hand-drawn surveyor's map from the 1930s. The detail was exquisite, but it depicted a place that didn't exist. A small, complete town named Sorrow's Hollow, nestled in a river valley that, on every modern map, is the bottom of the Blackwood Reservoir. I assumed it was a proposed town, a plan that was never built. A curiosity, I decided to digitize it, to add it to the historical record as a footnote. I laid the old paper under my high-resolution scanner. As the light passed over it, I noticed the ink had a strange, wet sheen to it. The lines blurring at the edges as if the drawing itself were weeping. I dismissed it as water damage. A simple, logical explanation. The first anomaly was digital. I tried to overlay the scanned coordinates of Sorrow's Hollow onto my satellite data of the reservoir, and the system broke. The software, which can map a pebble on Mars, couldn't process it. The screen glitched violently. The smooth digital topography of the reservoir floor warped and twisted, trying to form the streets and buildings of the ghost town, then collapsing back into a corrupted mess of pixels. It was a digital war between two realities. My modern verified data was in a direct conflict with the memory on the old paper. It was as if the map itself was a virus, a piece of impossible code that my system was fundamentally rejecting. For a moment, a single clear image of a church steeple appeared on the sonar scan of the lakebed, and then the entire system crashed. The haunting began to bleed into my own space. The next morning, I walked out of my bedroom, and the hallway to my kitchen was longer. I stopped, my coffee mug in hand, a wave of vertigo washing over me. The hallway was 5 feet longer than it had been the night before. The perspective was wrong. I measured it. It was impossible. The next day, a door to a closet was gone, replaced by a smooth, seamless wall. The geography of my own apartment was changing, reshaping itself to match the impossible, shifting logic of the map. I was no longer just studying a haunted place. I was living inside of it. The map wasn't just a drawing of a place. It was the place itself, and it was slowly, methodically, overwriting my reality with its own. I finally found the truth in a forgotten box of state records. It wasn't a proposed town. Sorrow's Hollow was real. It was sacrificed in 1934, when the valley was dammed and flooded to create the Blackwood Reservoir, providing power for the growing cities. The residents were forced out, their homes, their church, their graves, all condemned. The official records were wiped. The town was intentionally, systematically erased from every map to make way for progress. It became a ghost of history, a community drowned and forgotten. Its story buried under 100 feet of cold, dark water. The map I held was the only known copy, the last existing proof that Sorrow's Hollow had ever been real. It wasn't just a map. It was the town's last will and testament. The sensory haunting began. The air in my apartment grew cold and heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and river silt. And the sounds. I would be working, and I would hear the faint, distant sound of a church bell ringing, or the laughter of children playing. But the sounds were all wrong. They were muffled, distorted, and slow, as if I were hearing them from the bottom of a deep lake. The sounds of a happy, living town, filtered through a crushing weight of water and time. I felt a profound, suffocating pressure in my ears, the pressure of being deep underwater. The grief of the drowned town was no longer just an idea. It was a physical, auditory presence. It was the sound of a memory, screaming from its watery grave. I tried to fight it. I tried to burn the map, but the old paper wouldn't catch fire, just smoldered with a damp, cold smoke. One night, I laid the map out on my drafting table, determined to find a way to contain it. And I saw something new. A new building had been drawn onto the map, in the same weeping ink. It was an impossibly tall, modern structure that didn't fit with the 1930s architecture. It was my apartment building. It had been added to the map of Sorrows Hollow. The town knew where I lived. It wasn't just haunting me. It was annexing me. It was a lonely ghost, and it was drawing my own modern island of reality into its sad, forgotten archipelago. That night, the final transformation happened. I was woken by the sound of rushing water, but there was no water. My entire apartment was filled with a spectral, invisible flood. I could feel the cold, heavy current swirling around my legs. The furniture seemed to float in the unseen water. My books and papers drifted through the air in a slow-motion, ghostly ballet. The muffled sounds of the town were now all around me. It was the night of the flood, the night the dam was sealed and the water began to rise. The town wasn't just haunting me anymore. It was forcing me to drown with it. I was in my apartment on the 12th floor of a city high-rise, and I was drowning in a ghost town from 1934. I finally understood. The town didn't want revenge. It didn't want to hurt me. It just wanted to be remembered. It wanted its story to be told. It wanted to be put back on the map. I couldn't destroy the map, so I honored it. I sat down at my computer, the ghostly water swirling around my chair, and I began to work. I took my precise, modern, satellite data of the Blackwood Reservoir, and with a trembling hand, I began to draw. I created a new layer, a historical overlay. I drew the streets of Sorrows Hollow, the outline of the church, the shape of the town square. I took the weeping, heartbroken memory of the old map, and I gave it a new, permanent, digital home. I was no longer an archivist of the present. I was a cartographer of ghosts. The moment I saved the file, the water receded. The sounds faded. The cold vanished. My apartment was just my apartment again. The haunting was over. The next day, I made my new map public. I sent it to historical societies, to universities, to the state archives. The story of the drowned town of Sorrows Hollow was a minor sensation. It was remembered. A week later, a package arrived. The same unlabeled cardboard tube. Inside was the map. But it was different. The ink was no longer weeping. The lines were crisp and clear, and in a corner, in a new, elegant script, was a single new word. Written at the bottom of the town's name, remembered. The town wasn't a ghost anymore. It was just a memory. And sometimes, a memory is all a place has left.